Welcome to Bee's Travelogue, episode 73. My last Sunday in South Korea, I spent cleaning the apartment and using up the last bit of my food. Here I made scallion pancakes. I also noticed the progress on the parking lot outside and took pictures out my window. Whether or not you like Korean architecture, it certainly is unique. I was looking for something to share with my coworkers and also to buy something for my boss and his wife as a thank you and goodbye present. I ended up walking to Lotte department store and found a third floor that I hadn't been aware of before, with lots of restaurants and an outdoor area from where I had a good view over Namak, and I saw some parts I hadn't seen before. Unfortunately, it was a little bit overcast day, but it was still very nice to get this view. From the outdoor rooftop area, it was possible to see all the way to Hadang. This rooftop area even had a place for dogs to run around. There were definite signs of fall now in the outdoor gym. These gyms are often featured in K-dramas and very particular to South Korea. I went back through the main park where you could see the government building and my building in the distance. It was a sort of goodbye, I think, a little tour around Namak, saying goodbye to all the places I had visited before, like this guy reading on the bench. Because it was exactly 1 year, the park was decorated again, just as it had been when I arrived. Just with a little bit different decorations this time. You see the purple rectangles here. The last year it had been rainbow colored ovals. You see the airplane here. There was the watering can. The year before there were different figures. But it was all still very beautiful even on an overcast day. I believe this was a celebration of fall and the harvest. And for me, it culminated in that big concert that I saw in November. But since I was going to leave on October 31st this year, I wasn't going to see the next one. Namak and Mokpo were both part of Muanggan Township, so this park and festival were for the whole area. I found big hummingbird butterflies in these flowers and kept trying to take photos of them. Finally, it was my last evening with my friend Yuno. We had met almost every week for pretty much the entire year I was there, since February. And we talked about everything, mostly in English, but sometimes in Korean, and he helped me with so much. If you're watching this, thanks for being such a good friend. I was anxious about leaving and woke up early several times this week, catching the sunrises. Usually I would be upset waking up so early, but now I thought it would be the last time I could see a sunrise in Namak, and I just stayed up and appreciated every minute. Then came a special day when my friend Alicia, my Facebook friend, came to visit me in Namak. We walked around the same park again, but this time with blue sky, and you can see what a difference blue sky makes. Everything just looks so much more cheerful and pretty. Alicia and I had met in the K-drama Facebook group and become Facebook friends, and she visited Korea independently and just decided to come visit me shortly before I was leaving. So we just spent some hours walking around, and then we parted ways. I had to go back to work, and she was going to explore more of Namak and the surrounding area. I kept taking pictures of everything, the laughing pigs, the statue, the town itself, everywhere I was walking, just to remember what Namak had been like. These were the stone benches surrounding the circle where I would turn at a right angle to go to work or turn at a right angle to go back home. This was the way to Frank's Burger, where I would eat burgers every once in a while. This was a present from my Russian student, my little 10-year-old, a little lit up bouquet. I hadn't bought anything on my first trip buying presents for my coworkers and my boss, so I headed out again to look for flowers and found these beautiful chrysanthemums in the park. Really, the best time to visit South Korea is in May and in November, or let's say April, May, and October, November. It's going to be blue sky and sunny most of the time, while during the summer it will often be overcast and raining because it'll be monsoon season. And in the wintertime, from like late November through March, April, it will be cold and snowy. So just keep that in mind if you're planning a trip to South Korea. So I finally found the yellow orchid that I wanted to give as a present. I took it to school with me the next day along with some desserts for my coworkers. And I gave the pens to my students and I received presents in return. And then on the last evening, my boss took the whole school out for a dinner. And because he knew that I didn't really like Korean food, he took us all out to an Italian pizzeria. And everybody had really good Italian food. So that was very nice. Then, of course, on my final morning, it was like everybody was crying that I was leaving. It was raining so hard. And I had to take my big package from my apartment to the post office. 5 minutes away, not very far, but it was raining so much that the cardboard box was pretty much soaking wet. And I had to rush because I had realized that I couldn't transfer any money from my bank account unless I went to the bank first and filled out some form or had them change something in the computer that would allow me to use the banking services even from abroad. So I was rushing to the post office and then went to the branch in Mokpo near the train station because Tanya was going to wait for me at the train station, but I needed to try to squeeze in this bank visit. Fortunately, it didn't take very long in Mokpo, and Tanya waited for me. So we had at least a few minutes, not a whole hour, to just sit and talk and wait for my train. So then I said goodbye from Tanya, went on the KTX to Seoul, and then in Seoul, I took the bus to Incheon Airport. As you can see, it stayed pretty much rainy and overcast for most of that trip. I took some last pictures out of the bus window of all the tall apartment buildings, the bridge crossing over to Incheon, the cars at the airport, and then finally the airport itself. If you watch K-dramas, Incheon Airport is featured quite regularly when people take flights. Bus terminals like this are also quite amazing. I had to check in for my flight and go through immigration and return my alien registration card. My flight was going from Seoul to Hanoi, my very first time in Vietnam. I brought only carry-on luggage. Everything else was mailed to Germany. As you can see, Incheon Airport is quite big and has a lot of big brand names all over. So I was walking around, having a donut and coffee, and waited for my flight. Finally, it was time to board, and I was leaving South Korea for good. The time came to walk down the gangway and into the plane. A whole year had passed since my arrival, and I had seen so much. But now I was really looking forward to my trip through Southeast Asia. I had planned 10 days in Vietnam, a few days in Cambodia, a couple of nights in Laos, and then Thailand. I was going to spend 6 weeks on this trip and then head over to Germany to see my mom and brother and his family, and my daughter was going to fly in for a little while so we could spend some time together. And then the next part was for me to figure out where I would start working next. Would I go back to Thailand, or would I try to stay in Europe and find a job either in Germany or some other country like Spain? I hadn't decided, and I was going to try and figure it out. Please join me on my trip to Vietnam and Southeast Asia. Thank you for watching.